Good day and welcome to my shop. So today I'm getting ready to turn some Christmas ornaments for 2020. In the past I've made a considerable number of Christmas ornaments, and this year's theme is going to be a little bell. So with this little bell, it has a handle, has a body, has a clapper, little piece of leather, and that's my 2021 version of a Christmas ornament. As I said in previous years, I've made little angel ornaments. I've made whimsical little spindle turning snowmen with a center hollowed out and filled with foam, and caroling snowmen, some Christmas trees, a nativity scene with shepherds, and some garden gnomes, and also many years ago I was making a lot of these birdhouse ornaments. But this year it's 2021, and 2021 is going to be my version of a Christmas bell. So up there on the board behind me, I've got several different designs that I worked on, and I started with this one here as the first design. It's a solid piece, one piece of wood, but I found that it was a lot more work to put the clacker in with all being one piece. So I made a different design, and I put some through holes, made it easier to assemble. But I wasn't sure that I liked the shape. The shape was okay and it sounded okay, but I wasn't really sold on the shape, so I asked for some input from a few folks, and they suggested that I should go to a more of a belled out bottom portion, and that's what I started doing. And I kind of like this one, and I like this one. I think this one here is probably going to be the ultimate design, because that's the one I've got here, and most of them seem to turn this way a little easier than some of the other designs, a little bit easier to be consistent. So that's what we're going to do. So without further ado, I'm going to show you my process for making a Christmas bell. Okay, to start with, we start with a small block of wood. This block of wood is roughly 45 millimeters by 45 millimeters by 85 millimeters long, or 1 3/4 by 1 3/4 by 3.5, somewhere in there. It doesn't have to be. What we end up doing first off is we'll find a center on the end with the put a crisscross from corner to corner. Use a center punch to put a little dimple in. Do that on both ends. Actually, this one probably makes it a little easier to see. Put a cross on it, a little dimple in the center, and we turn all of these blocks between centers until we get something like this. So this is roughly a 35 millimeter tenon. I just take them round and I put a tenon on the dovetail to match my my chuck. So without further ado, that will make the bell. Bring this up, lock it into place, give myself a little more room there. And as I said, I just take these to round. Okay, so the tools I'm going to use to do this is I'm going to use my spindle roughing gouge, because this is end grain turning, so it's spindle turning. And I'm going to use a skew to put the tenon on. So basically this is just rinse and repeat. I'll just do a couple here to show how quickly this actually does go when you have a half a dozen blocks ready to go. takes a few seconds to get something round. Next step now is to take the tailstock out of the way, and we're going to put a chuck on. And I've got my Vic Mark chuck with the 35mm jaws. I found that the 50mm jaws were just a little bit big for this project, and I like to, most of the wood that I'm working with starts off at 2 inches or 50mm or slightly less. And if you use a 50mm jaw, it's hard to get the blocks of wood big enough. This way I can make use of a lot smaller pieces of wood, and even at this you can tell 35mm jaws is fairly wide open, but it'll be good and solid for what we're doing here. Now what I normally do is put a 1/8 or even a 3/16 drill bit, drill a hole in, and I drill a hole in full depth so that the small diameter hole goes all the way through. And the reason for that will come obvious shortly. And so this is drilled through to about there. You look good? And I like to put a little mark on there just so I can remember where it's at. That's basically got the bell shaped out. It's hollowed. Leave it a little bit thinner down here, and I know that I've got the hole drilled through to the top of the bell. So when I part this off, I'll reverse it and finish the top, and then we'll put a bigger hole in order to put a handle in. So we'll just do that right now. Another reason I like these, well, I'm going to part it off first, and then I can turn it around and finish it. So as I was saying, I like these 35mm jaws for this project because it allows me to hold the bell in the dovetail. So I push this all the way in up against the dovetail. I don't know if you can see that on the camera there. If you can see the dovetail, the 35mm jaws just holds the bell almost on the perfect circle. And it doesn't even mark the wood. It's a perfect circle. It grabs all the way around and holds it really nicely. And it doesn't have to be too tight, because when I'm finishing the top here, I'm using a spindle gouge and taking very, very light cuts. And we'll go from there. Give it a spin to make sure this is good. Touch up this little knob on the top. I like leaving a little knob in there just because it's so it's hard to be consistent on a smooth dome to put a handle in, but if I put a little detail, then it distracts the eye and it means it has to be there. So now on this end of the bell, you can see there's a 1/8 inch holes in there, but I want to put a handle in. So what I'll do now is I'll put in a quarter inch hole. So we'll slow the lathe down. We'll bring it up nice and slowly, and we'll let the bit find its own center. It wants to wiggle a little bit, but that doesn't really matter because we're only going to go in about that far. And so we're in about that far. And in the center there's the 1/8 inch hole. So the 1/8 inch hole is allows me to pull the tail all the way through, and then this gives me this much room for the handle. I'm going to go just a little deeper. It was wobbling around a little bit, but for this particular application it might be a little bit off center, but it doesn't seem to make a big difference on the bell. When the handle's in, you'll never notice it. So basically, that's the bell body. So it's got a 1/4 inch hole on the top. Let's see, there we go. Trying to get this in the right camera. It's got a 1/4 inch hole on the top. It's got a 1/8 inch hole in the center and the bottom. Get the sawdust out of there. So you can see there's a 1/8 inch hole on the bottom. It goes all the way through. There's a 1/4 inch hole on the top, and we're going to make a handle and a clapper next. Okay, and for the clapper, I changed my jaws to a new jaw that I just picked up last year, actually, from Record Power, and I really like it specifically for these small jobs. It's a Record Power SC2, and I've got the domed jaws on it, and it comes fixed thread, 1'8", so I just put my adapter on my Vicmark 1'1¼ 8, and I screw this onto it. And what I really like about it is when I'm going to make clackers and make handles, I cut my timbers square, about 1 centimeter or 10 millimeters square, and for the handles they just fit in the chuck, and they'll actually fit all the way through into the headstock, so I can use a long stick like this, and I can turn handles right here close with lots of support and no tailstock. So this makes it really easy to make the handles, because you have lots of support. There's only this much wood sticking out, and yeah, we can make some handles. And this is good skew practice. And this is also a good time to use a little sizing tool like this. This is just a 1/4 inch wrench, and I cut the end off and epoxied it into a handle, so I can push this onto the stick and make it exactly 1/4 inch, and then I can try it on the bell. This end of the 1/4 inch has been sharpened, and this side has been left round, so it actually will go in and cut a tenon once you get close. So there's a handle that fits in there fairly well. This one's a little bit off center, but it fits. So that little wrench just gives me the perfect size tenon to fit in here. The length of this tenon is only maybe 5 millimeters, and the hole in here is about 10 millimeters. So when I pull the leather through here to set the knocker and glue it, there's room enough for the glue and a little piece of leather, so when I glue this on, makes it easy. Okay, So the next step, I would go ahead now and just advance this piece of wood to make a second handle. It's that simple and easy. You just carry on. There we go. That's as quick and easy to make handles. And because this long piece of stick is in the going through the headstock, I can make a whole bunch of, however number of handles I need, I can make them one at a time. And we use a similar process with this chuck for doing the clackers. So in order to make the clackers, I start with a square of wood, about the same, about 10 millimeters by 10 millimeters by whatever length, and I find center on it and mark off every 10 centimeters. Then I take it to the drill press and I drill it out every 10 centimeters or 10 millimeters. Now when I put it in the chuck, similar to doing it with the handles, this will slide in through the tailstock, and I can bring it out and only have a short section of wood sticking out of the chuck, which gives it a really nice purchase. So now it doesn't vibrate, it's nice and solid, makes it easy to work. And again, this is good skew practice, or you can use a spindle gouge, whatever tool works for you. I'll do one with a spindle gouge and then I'll switch back to the skew. I particularly like using the skew. Tool rest is a little high for this one. I like to try and turn the clacker to round first. This one here looks like it's still got a lot of flat on it, which tells me the the turning blank wasn't perfectly square, so I may have to adjust my my design just a little bit. So this particular one here looks like the, I might not be able to do it. I probably put the holes on the wrong side. I should have put the holes on the wide side. If it wasn't perfectly square, it would have been better to have the holes on this side. But we'll see what happens. So because it's a clacker, it's got a little bit of a flat side on it. Nobody's really going to see it. I'll know it's there, so it'll probably bother me, but basically I would just turn a bunch of these clackers out of this this stick and go from there. I'm going to see if I can take it to round all the way around. I don't think that's going to go to round and leave me enough with a clacker that'll make any noise. Now we'll see, that might... No, I don't like that stuff. So obviously, so when I drilled this out, obviously I should have laid it on the wide side and put the holes in this side. That would have allowed me to turn the bottom side of the clacker round, so anybody looking at the bell would see a nice round clacker and the flat would be on the top. So even though this is, no, it's not quite square. I guess I should have made it perfectly square and things would have been a little easier. But without, it's easy enough to do. I can just go back to the drill press and make another one and put the holes on the wide side. Looks like I marked this one on the narrow side as well. So I'll remark this, re-drill it, and I'll come back when that's done. Okay, I'm back. I just went over to the drill press and I laid it on the flat and drilled some new holes. So we're going to try this again. So I prefer to use a skew when I'm doing this kind of work. It just seems to work better for me. And one of the things I do when I'm working with a skew and I'm going to be close to the chuck, what I like to do is I like to put a mark or V-mark in here so that when I'm planing this way, when I get close to there, it will actually dig into wood rather than digging into the chuck. Anchor the tool, ride the bevel, pick up the top. Take a look and see whether that's going to be, we'll take a look and see if this gives us a little more of a rounded shape. And it looks like it's going to give us a nice rounded shape on the bottom. So we start with a V-cut. Cut it on this side to give you some room. And then just basically try and make a small sphere. They don't have to be perfect, but it gives you great screw practice, and it gives you great practice at making very small spheres. So there we go. We got a little bit of a flat on here, which is not a problem. And it's round all the way around on the bottom. The ends are got a little bit of a point, but you can hit those with a piece of sandpaper and knock that little point off. Or you can get a little bit more practice with the skew and get a little cleaner cut. And so I just go ahead and rinse and repeat. And because this has got the holes are already drilled, I can cut 1, 2, maybe even 3 before I have to move it in the chuck. So let's try this again. Cut. Go. Rinse and repeat. So there we go. This one here looks like there's a little bit of hole off to the side, so that's such a small piece of wood, I just don't worry about that one at all. I'll just make another one. But as you can see, with these set of jaws and this chuck, makes working with really small pieces just a real joy. It's you can do it with spigot jaws or pen jaws. The one thing I like about this particular set of jaws is they got the rounded jaws, so I never have to worry too much about my knuckles getting wrapped by my other jaws. It can definitely be done with a #1 jaws on a Talon chuck, or pen jaws, or spigot jaws, but since I got this, I really like it, and it works well. Okay, so that's there's the 3 wooden pieces. There's the clacker, there's the handle, and there's the bell. So the next step is to make a whole batch of these, and then we'll go over to the assembly table, and we'll put them together on the assembly table. I'll come back when we're ready to assemble. I'll make up a half a dozen or so of these, and then I'll come back when we're ready to do an assembly. We'll move the cameras over to the assembly table, and we'll finish some bells. The original soundtrack for this video, for some reason we lost the audio soundtrack, so I'm going to do a voiceover. And what we're showing here is the assembly process for the Christmas bells. So I set things up on a little table here, and I've got one of the bells, and I've got some leather strips cut. And we're going to show how we put the bell handle and body and the clacker together, and very simple process. So we're starting off with the bell. Okay, so there's a little better view. We're going to take a look at this from the overhead camera. You can see that we've got a piece of leather set in the bell, and we're using a little tool. It's just a drill bit that's reversed into a block of wood, and it's a little smaller than the hole, so it goes ahead and pushes the leather into the 3mm hole in the bell body, and we can pull the leather through, and we're going to glue on a knocker onto the one end of the leather. So these forceps really help in getting the holding the small piece of wood so we don't get the medium CA all over your fingers. And we just lay the leather on top of the hole and use the little inserting tool to force the leather into the knocker with the thick CA. Then we can pull the leather back and set the clack or the knocker at the appropriate length. So it's a fairly simple process. Medium CA glue in the small hole in the knocker. We'll take a strip of leather and lay it on top of the hole and use the special tool to just push the leather in the hole. Medium CA is a little sticky sometimes, so it's a little fiddly, but it works. So once we've got the clacker, the knocker glued into the leather, strip is long enough then that we can start putting it in the bell. And one of the reasons that I drilled a 3mm hole in the from the inside of the bell is to make it so that when the leather is pulled into the hole and you apply CA, thick CA to the 1/4-inch hole, it doesn't just flow right down through into the interior of the bell. The leather kind of holds it in the 1/8-inch hole or 3mm hole, and so it basically just glues the leather in the small bore hole. Here, so we're just doing all 4 of them here. And with these small parts, having the forceps is really handy tool to be able to grab the small pieces, and it keeps you from getting the CA glue all over your fingers. Set these off here a little bit to the side, and I believe I'm going to get the activator so that we can just spray a little activator on the CA glue to help that thick or medium thick CA set up quicker. Now that we've got the knocker glued onto the leather, we can pull the leather up until we get to the length that we'd like to have. And then I hold it with my finger on the inside, and I'll get my scissors and we'll cut off the excess. And we'll put in a drop of medium CA down in the bottom of the 1/4-inch hole, or the 7mm hole. That effectively glues the leather clapper holder in place. And you might have noticed there that I actually pulled the clapper leather in a little bit into the bell so that I have some clearance on the top. And the clearance on the top of the leather is designed to give room for the handle to go in on top. So now that we've got the clappers welded or glued in there, I use Titebond translucent to install the handles on it. I like the translucent glue because it goes on white and you can see it when you put it on, but when it dries absolutely clear. And so putting a little bit of glue on here, there's a little bit of squeeze out. It's not an issue because you wipe it off with a piece of paper towel and basically it disappears, and once it dries it's perfectly clear, you can't even see it. So it's really handy for this kind of a project. I suppose any kind of translucent glue would work. I just like the Titebond product, and it's been working well for me, so that's what I've been using. Dry. So here I'm showing what we're using when we were putting an eyelet in the end of the bell, something to attach a string to. And because the handles are really thin, I use really small eyelets. I believe I bought them at Lee Valley. They're very small eyelets, but they also require to be pre-drilled, otherwise we would just bust the handles open. But in order to get the drill centered, I use my awl, and the awl has a triangular point on it, and I don't push it in with pressure. I just set it on top and twist it back and forth, and the triangular cross section of the awl basically drills itself a little starter hole, and the starter hole basically will just give us a point of reference for the drill bit. And the drill bit is sized slightly smaller than the threads of the very tiny eyelets. And because this is a fairly tedious process, I typically would do these bell ornaments in stages. I would probably make 15 or 20 bell bodies and handles and knockers, and then when I go to the assembly table I can sit down on a comfortable chair and maybe a little music in the background and do the tedious parts of putting it together. But for this demonstration I'm doing it at the lathe. So I'm just showing here that I've got these small eyelets, and I also keep an extra drill bit taped to the inside of the lid of the eyelet box, so that if I ever break the bit that's in the mini chuck, then I don't have to go searching for the right bit. I found the right bit once, and I've taped a spare bit to the lid of each of the boxes of eyelets, so it makes it easier in the future. And pre-drilling the holes on the handles is extremely important. The very first ones I didn't pre-drill, and I had about a 50% failure rate of the handles splitting out. And of course you can realize the handle's already in the bell, So having it split at that point means that I had to rechuck the bell and drill up, cut the handle off and re-drill the hole. So pre-drilling really made a difference. And this is my 2021 version of a Christmas ornament. Thank you for watching.